and welcome to my channel. My name is Martine, and if you are new here, I do videos on Vedic astrology mainly, but also with some tropical insights, and I focus on both relationship and natal astrology. And if you like this video and you would like to hear more content from me, please like, subscribe, hit the notifications bell to see when I will post a new video. And also, if you're interested in a personal consultation, I do consultations on a wide variety of topics. Please check out the video description. I will leave my contact information there. Thank you. And also, as an extra note, I have started doing tarot readings. I'm doing tarot readings through a separate online platform that I would rather not talk about for now. But I have gotten some very good feedback, very good reviews. I do plan to at some point start doing tarot readings on this channel, maybe starting a different channel that is exclusively for tarot, maybe at some point. But for now, yeah, I'm doing the readings through this other platform, and I have gotten some really good reviews. And if you are interested in seeing, some sample readings and reviews that I have gotten, so that maybe you would consider purchasing a tarot reading from me, please email me at the email in the video description. Okay, thank you. So today's video is going to be on a subject that I've really thought about. Should I talk about this? Should I not talk about this? The irony of the situation is that I was considering actually writing a blog post. I didn't want to do a video because, again, it's a sensitive topic and I didn't want my videos to be flagged or anything talking about political stuff potentially. It's not so much political. I'm going to try to avoid keywords. That's why I'm not going to name the name. I'm just going to call the person the president of Russia. You know who he is. That's probably already saying enough anyway. I wanted to do a blog post talking about the current transits and the looming conflict. And now it has escalated into actual open conflict, which I cannot. I wish that I can say honestly that I can't believe it, but to be honest, I expected it. I expected it to actually escalate to the point of open conflict. I just didn't expect it to happen so soon. I was thinking that this was going to happen when Rahu is going to hit, the Aries side of Krittika, which is at some point in the end of March, early April. But, there are some other transits that I didn't take into account that happened, a couple of days ago when troops were actually sent into Ukraine. Anyway, so why do I want to make this video? Just to illustrate some things that I have noticed. And I also just think that if the West is not interfering right now, I think that they're making a huge mistake. I don't think that this thing is going to blow over. I really do hope that Ukraine manages to win or at least hold them off for as long as possible. But I don't think this person is going to back down, considering the things that I've seen astrologically. I'm not some kind of a political expert. And to be fair, I think even people who don't care about astrology can say that this is the kind of person that's not going to back down. I've heard people comparing him to a shark, and now he's basically a shark who has had a taste of human blood. I don't think he's going to back down anytime soon. Anyway, but we'll try not to be too angry about it, because I am pretty angry about it. I can't believe that already there have been so many human casualties over this person's ego issues and power-hungry tactics and fights over resources. Whatever. You would have think that we would be over it by now as a species, but apparently, yeah, we keep falling into the old traps. And right, so let me start with the beginning. Rahu entered Krittika Nakshatra, which I have talked about. If you're interested in finding out more, you can also watch my video on planets in the Sun-ruled Nakshatras and the partner archetype. I talked about Krittika there in more detail, but I'm going to give a short description on some key themes that Krittika deals with, the nakshatra of Krittika. It has entered Krittika in around September last year, and it's going to stay in Krittika, which worries me deeply, until the 12th of July, roughly 2022. And in fact, not only that, but it's going to, this conflict has the potential to escalate because it's going to enter Aries and it's just going to become more into warfare. Okay, right now Krittika is in Taurus, which is still has the side influence of Venus, where you can still have like a little bit of common sense and diplomacy, but once it enters Aries, it's going to be full on massive, power hungry tactics and warfare. So I hope that it will not last until then, but I don't know. Again, I will abstain from making any kind of prognosis because, once again, astrology does not map all the mysteries of life. Someone once told me that, and I resented it at first. An older astrologer told me that once. Anyway, but yeah, it does not map all the mysteries of life, and a lot of this has to do with human behavior and what is actually going to happen and the willpower of one side and the other. Okay, but astrology does give influences which are valuable to look at. Okay, so energetically, astrology and transits can show you when the door is open for certain opportunities, for certain events to happen, and when it is not open. Okay, let me put it like that. And basically, the difference between going with the transits versus going against the transits is kind of like, do you want to sail with the wind in your favor or not? That's how I'm going to describe it. Or do you want to swim against the current or not? Obviously, if you swim downstream, it's going to be faster. You're going to get to where you want much faster. Okay. So that's why I think astrology is valuable to look at. Right. So Krittika, let me get back to Krittika. Krittika has to deal with warfare. This is called the star of power, the birthplace of power. Okay. Normally, Krittika is seen as a, quote, passive nakshatra, and I think this is why the president of Russia was able to maneuver this stuff, because on the surface he does not seem as a person who I think would use downright open force and stuff like that. I think he was able to kind of fool people with the false pretense of semi-diplomacy, let's say, and an attitude of self-control. He has moon in Krittika natally, which is very important in this case because Rahu is conjunct his moon. I am going to show his chart as well on the screen. And Rahu is conjunct his moon. Rahu has been conjoined his moon since it entered Taurus, which is like a long time ago, I think approximately about a year ago. However, it entered Krittika on around the 19th of September last year, and at which point this conjunction is particularly intensified. And why do I say this is important? Because Rahu, first of all, in Krittika, and I remember actually KRS did a video. I'm sorry that I'm jumping around, but as you can see, I'm pretty annoyed with this whole thing, and I'm trying to get everything, all my thoughts in there. But I have seen a video that KRS posted a few months ago, as in last year, when Rahu entered Krittika, and he was talking about, this is going to bring environmental issues. Krittika has to deal with resources, and I was thinking, holy shit. And I was already kind of like, had a really bad feeling about it because, to be fair, Rahu does go through, the same sign or the same nakshatra roughly every 18 years. But, in light of what has happened since 2020, this climate of BS and power maneuvers and political upheaval and all this stuff, Rahu and Krittika really is bad news. And already when KRS made that video, he was talking about the environment. I was thinking, holy shit, like Rahu, wait a second, Krittika also has to deal with natural resources. This could potentially bring conflicts about resources because Krittika is a warring nakshatra. In fact, out of all the 27 nakshatras, Krittika and Purva Ashada, which also has been activated at the moment when troops entered Ukraine, are the most warlike, the most warmongering nakshatras out there. Okay, Krittika is about fire, it's about combat, it's all about tactical stuff. I think, what's his name? Sun Tzu or something, who wrote The Art of War. He also had Sun in Krittika, if his birth date was correct. Anyway, yeah, so already the fact that Rahu is conjoined his moon is bad news, because this person already is a very power hungry individual, and now it's blown out of proportion. Okay, so he probably has that extra boost of courage, because remember, Rahu is also about achieving things by any means necessary. It's about achieving your material ambitions and desires, no matter what. And Rahu also takes on the cloak of any nakshatra that is enters. So in Krittika, it's going to take on the cloak of warfare, okay, of conflict. Krittika normally, like I said, can also be seen as peaceful, but there is, if it is triggered, if it has the right motivation, it can be extremely destructive. Probably the most destructive of them all, really, probably after Ardra. But really, in terms of warfare and anything that has to do with heat and fire and conflict, Krittika definitely is the most destructive nakshatra. Okay, so that's one thing that I noticed right away, and already it was like bad news. But then transits are getting even more descriptive of the current situation. And first of all, what I have noticed in his chart, in the President of Russia's chart, as you can see, I have marked the Arudha Lagna. So he has Arudha Lagna in Cancer, and the third house from Cancer is occupied by Sun and Saturn, already two malefics. Then the sixth house from the Arudha Lagna is occupied by Mars, another malefic. So even if I didn't know whose chart this belonged to, if I just looked at this chart, I would say this is the kind of person that you don't want to mess with. Okay, because this person, first of all, the third house from the Arudha shows how you are perceived with respect to your courage and stuff. And it also shows your actual personality, right? Because the Arudha goes hand in hand with your actual personality by virtue of the fact that people respond to you from basically throughout your entire life. They respond to you based on your Arudha Lagna. So automatically your behavior and your personality will begin to be customized according to what other people give you as feedback. So if people see you as a terrifying person, you will become a terrifying person. And I'm pretty sure that right now this is true with him. And in any case, this is a person who's very intimidating and unsurprising. I think his own people are afraid of him. In any case, okay. Also, the fact that he has Mars in the sixth from the Arudha Lagna, this shows his attitude towards his enemies. And Mars in the sixth from the Arudha shows this person is not going to have qualms about actually going to physical violence, if necessary, to remove enemies. And this is something that I noticed already in his chart. But aside from what is going on in his chart, also, wait, he has Mars in the third house natally, if you notice. So this is a person who has a lot of daring, a lot of courage. And then he has Rahu in the fourth house, which is the house of the home base and the mother, but it's also the house of the homeland. So a person who's very hungry, quote unquote, it matters to do with his perceived protection of the homeland, I think. In any case, okay, so this is what the Arudha Lagna, but I'm going to get into transits now. As you can see, what happened when the conflict actually started, actually blew up into open conflict, was that Venus and Mars were conjunct in Sagittarius in Purva Ashada. They're still conjunct in Sagittarius in Purva Ashada. However, it's going to change in a few days, I think. Wait a second. Yeah. Within a few days, roughly 27th of February, Mars will enter Capricorn, which I think is going to make things a little bit worse for the adversaries. But, okay, we'll try not to make prognosis, like I said. So why is this important, this conjunction? First of all, Purva Ashada, like I mentioned, I talked about Purva Ashada again. You can see the video that I did on the Venus-ruled Nakshatras and Purva Ashada I mentioned there actually stands for preparation for warfare. I mentioned there also that Hitler notoriously had 3 planets, I think, including his moon, and I think he also actually had this conjunction, if I'm not wrong. I don't remember exactly, but I do know he had 3 planets conjunct in Purva Ashada. So this nakshatra is very, how should I put it, eager to start conflicts, okay? And this transit, you know, it's no coincidence, I think, that this transit happened. And I'm going to get to the chart of Ukraine in a little bit, and you're going to see how that worked out, okay? But it's not a coincidence, if you ask me, that this is when the conflict started, when Rahu is in Krittika and, you know, Mars and Venus are in Purva Ashada. Let me see something. But yeah, okay. And in fact, when Mars is going to enter Capricorn, no, actually, forget it. It's all good. In any case, yes, this conjunction is happening in Sagittarius, okay? And let me see. With respect to what is happening in his chart, I don't think it is particularly relevant. Yeah, wait, yeah, it is. It is relevant in the sense that transits to Arudha Lagna. So a lot of you ask me, how do you interpret transits to Arudha Lagna? I can tell you some things right now that are very relevant with the current situation. Is that if you have, so the 7th from the Arudha Lagna, the 7th house from the Arudha Lagna rules your open enemies, people who confront you directly, open conflicts, okay? The 12th house from the Arudha Lagna rules hidden enemies, people who may not tell you to your face that they hate you, but they are secretly conspiring against you. So basically, these are the 2 houses that rule enemies according to the Arudha Lagna. And then the 6th house from the Arudha Lagna shows how you deal with enemies, okay? Are you a rough person? Are you going to use physical violence? Are you going to use tactics? Are you going to use intelligence? What is the main thing that you have to use against your enemies, okay? So clearly, the president of Russia has Mars in the 6th from the Arudha, which shows this person will pretty much stop at nothing to destroy an enemy, okay? Aside from that, with the transit, so the transit of Venus and Mars is going through his 6th house, basically encouraging, you know, him to be even more aggressive towards his enemies. But that's not what I wanted to say. Right now, Saturn, so malefics going through the 7th house or the 12th house are actually hindering your enemies. Because malefics are going to, you know, destroy the opportunities of your enemies, okay? So Saturn going through the 7th house right now is in his favor. In his 7th house. Saturn is in Capricorn, okay? A glimmer of hope. I'm going to get to that in a little bit. Wait a second. I'm getting ahead of myself. Yeah, but Saturn absolutely is hindering his enemies, okay? And then the fact that Mars is in the 6th house is also hindering his enemies because Mars is opposite the 12th house. However, this is kind of a combination of 2 separate energies here because you have Mars on the one hand and you also have Venus, which is a benefic. So benefics transiting the 7th or the 12th house from your Arudha Lagna are helping your enemies, basically. So it's interesting in his case because you have the Venus-Mars conjunction, but this is only for a short time. And this is why I said I'm not surprised that the conflict started now because this was basically the perfect timing for this shit to happen. I apologize. I probably should have apologized from the beginning that I'm going to be cussing a lot. And yeah, whatever. So this is what is happening right now. The reason I say I think that this conflict, I think I mentioned this, I think it's a huge mistake if the West does not interfere. The reason I say this is because right now Jupiter is in Aquarius, and when Jupiter now in Aquarius is aspecting his 12th from the Arudha, okay? So his 12th from the Arudha is the hidden enemies. This shows that this is actually still a time when hidden enemies can be helped. They'll have a window of opportunity. to destroy this person, to stop this person. But when Jupiter is going to enter Pisces, which is going to happen, I think, at some point in mid to late April 2022, when Jupiter enters Pisces, Jupiter will aspect his ascendant, no longer aspecting the 12 from the Arudha Lagna. Instead, aspecting his ascendant, the Arudha Lagna itself, which is actually going to give him more power and improve his image, maybe in front of his own people, maybe, who knows. So this is something that I noticed right away. Another thing that I can say, let me think. So right now, he really has things in his favor for the most part. Saturn there in the 7th is going to be there for, again, when Saturn moves out of his 7th, when Saturn moves into into Aquarius, it will be, the chances will be maybe a little bit higher for his enemies to stop him. But so far, really, I mean, what can I say? He really picked the perfect timing. And let me get to the Ukraine's chart. First of all, what I can say about Ukraine's chart is already, just without even looking at the Arudha Lagna at first, the first thing that I noticed, look, what do you notice first and foremost, is the current transit of Mars and Venus in Purva Ashada in Sagittarius is going through the ascendant, okay? The house of the physical, the status quo, the physical body, the house of you as a person. If Ukraine were a person, the ascendant was actually the physical body. So, and the current transit is going through the first house. And not only that, but Venus rules the 6th house. So if you look at the natal chart, the 6th house is the house of enemies. The 12th house is the house of hidden enemies. And if you look at the chart of Ukraine, Mars rules the 12th house. Venus rules the 6th house. So enemies are gathering in the house of the ascendant. Like I said, perfect timing, quote unquote. Things are going to get, I hope they are going to get a little bit better when Mars enters Capricorn. Another thing that I noticed just looking at the natal chart, Mars is in the 10th house. Can I just say, this is a formidable enemy. I mean, Mars is in the 10th house where it receives maximum directional strength, Digbala. So this is where Mars is happiest, according to position by house, okay? In the placement that it is by sign, it's a pretty decent placement as well. But this is a really strong, formidable enemy. And not just that Mars is in the 10th house in the natal chart, but if you look according to the Arudha Lagna, which I have marked there with the purple, Mars is also in the 6th house. So basically, the chart of Ukraine is mirroring the chart of Putin in this respect, that they both have Mars in the 6th house. So they're both hitting hard into the enemy. But look at what is happening. Pluto is going through the 7th from the Arudha. This could be advantageous for them because it is hindering the open enemies. However, I would not bet all my money on Pluto when it comes to transit so much. Sorry, this is not about transits. I mean, this is a natal placement, okay? So in any case, it shows hitting hard in the enemies. It also shows enemies are, well, Pluto rules even things like things to do with resources of the soil, management of resources of the soil, politicians, and all that. But that's not what I wanted to say. What did I want to say? Yeah, if you look at the 3rd house, not from the Arudha Lagna, from the ascendant, right now, Sun and Jupiter are in Aquarius, in the 3rd house, which I think is boosting bravery. Also, natally, Arudha Lagna in Aries is pretty tough. Not only that, but Mars aspecting Arudha Lagna by 8th aspect is making it pretty tough, really tough. So let me just say that again, if Ukraine were a person, I would not want to mess with this person. So, I mean, I think they have pretty decent chances of holding out. And another thing that I wanted to say, let me look. I wanted to say about, I forgot something. There was something else that I wanted to say. What else can I, wait a second. Also, with the Arudha Lagna, again, Venus and Mars. Venus rules, Mars rules the Arudha Lagna, Venus rules the 7th from the Arudha Lagna. This conjunction is significant for them as well because it activates the Arudha Lagna and the 7th from the Arudha Lagna, which has to do with open conflicts and open enemies. But another thing that I wanted to say, Jupiter is ruling the 12th from the Arudha Lagna, and it's falling right now by transit, falling in the 11th house from the Arudha Lagna. One potential translation could be gains from hidden enemies. And this is what I said. You really don't want to postpone this conflict until Jupiter enters Pisces. When Jupiter is going to enter Pisces, it's going to fall in the 12th house from the Arudha Lagna for this country, which shows giving power to hidden enemies. 12 from the Arudha, let me see. It's going to get, either way, it's a pretty difficult placement because right now Jupiter is in Aquarius and it's aspecting the 7th from the Arudha Lagna, but it's a milder aspect. If it enters Pisces, it's going to be worse, I think. In any case, yeah. What I wanted to, these are just some things that I noticed, and again, I don't claim to be the super most advanced, maybe astrologers who are super advanced will be able to see a lot more in these charts, but what I can say definitely is that Ukraine is a formidable enemy to be messed with, but the transits right now are not really the best. They're not really 100%, they're more in favor of the adversary, let me put it like that. And they're going to be even more in favor of the adversary if time goes on. Once it reaches, here's the thing, when Venus is going to enter Capricorn, not in the chart of Ukraine, but when Venus is going to enter Capricorn, and that's going to be on around the 30th of March. That's a long time from now. Yeah, I wouldn't count on that. But yeah, if it gets to last that long, it will potentially aid Ukraine in the conflict. But yeah, in any case, I do think that looking at the transits, I think it's a mistake if other countries do not interfere, because I don't see this thing going away anytime soon. And like I mentioned, when Rahu is going to enter Aries, it might get even worse. Even though, technically, when Rahu is going to enter Aries, first of all, if it enters Aries, it's going to fall in the Arudha Lagna of Ukraine. And but at least the positive side, maybe to some extent, is that it will no longer aspect the moon of the president of Russia. But really, I think right now, if people want to end this conflict, if the people in general want this conflict to end, this is as good of a chance as we're ever going to get, probably within the next month or so. I don't think waiting is going to make things better. Let me put it like that. So yes, unfortunately, Rahu going through Krittika, I would not be surprised, again, because Krittika has to deal with resources of the earth. This topic is, it's as old as time, and right now there are multiple potential boiling pots of conflict with respect to resources. So this is why I had a bad feeling about this from the beginning, but I didn't want to think about it, because nobody wants to think about it until it really escalates. And yeah, so Krittika being in Aries until roughly the mid-July 2022 really doesn't make me feel better. Okay, so this is what I wanted to say. Okay, these are just some rants that I noticed, things that I noticed with respect to the charts. And whichever the situation may be, I really do hope that this thing ends as quickly as possible and with as little loss on all parts as possible. What can you do? Hope for the best, expect the worst, that kind of thing. Yeah, so pretty much this is being just my interpretation. I hope you have found it useful or interesting. If you have, please comment in the comment section. If you maybe notice things that I haven't noticed with respect to transits or ideas that you might have with what is going on in these charts, let's keep it astrological. Please comment in the comment section because I would be curious to hear your perspective. And that's about it. Thank you.